The alien ship Harmony's Edge floated quietly in the darkness of space. Inside the ship, Zethka looked at his computer screen with excitement. He had been studying a new planet called Earth for many months. The blue and green world looked perfect. For his research, Zethka was a tall, thin creature with 4 arms and large yellow eyes. His people, the Veltar, were peaceful plant-eaters who had been part of the Galactic Council for over 2,000 years. They were experts at finding new species and helping them join the Great Alliance of Protected Worlds. The data on his screen made him happy. Earth had large cities, but they also had vast farms. The creatures there grew food instead of hunting. For it, they lived in groups and seemed to care for each other. Best of all, they had no natural weapons. No claws, no fangs, no poison, no thick armor. They were clearly another prey species that needed protection. Zeth pressed a button and sent his report to the council leaders. Within hours, he received orders to make contact with these humans and bring them into the Protected Species Alliance. It would be another successful mission. Not far away from the alien ship, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his vessel, New Horizon. The ship was humanity's first real attempt at deep space exploration. Jake was a man in his 40s with gray hair and steady blue eyes. He had spent 20 years in Earth's space program, but nothing had prepared him for what happened next. Communications Officer Lieutenant Ben Taylor suddenly looked up from his station. His face was pale and his hands were shaking slightly. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission. It's not from Earth." Jake felt his heart beat faster. This was it. First contact with alien life. He had dreamed of this moment since he was a child. But now that it was happening, he felt nervous. "Put it on screen, Ben." The main display flickered and then showed the image of Zethka. The alien looked friendly enough, though very different from any human. When he spoke, the computer translated his words into English. "Greetings, creatures of Earth. I am Zethka of the Veltar people. We represent the Galactic Council and the No. Protected Species Alliance. We have been watching your world, and we are pleased to offer you our protection." Dr. Lisa Bennett, the ship's scientist, raised an eyebrow. She was a smart woman who had studied biology her whole life. Something about the alien's words bothered her. "Protection from what?" Jake asked. Zeth smiled, showing small flat teeth. "From the predator species, of course. The galaxy is a dangerous place for peaceful creatures like yourselves. There are many hunting species that would harm you if they found your world. But do not worry. We have protected thousands of species just like yours. You will be safe under our care." Commander Alex Torres, the ship's military advisor, crossed his arms. He was a shorter man with dark hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Alex had fought in several Earth conflicts, and he recognized condescension when he heard it. "What exactly does this protection involve?" Alex asked. "It is simple," Zethka replied. "We will relocate your people to safe worlds where predators cannot reach you. You will have everything you need: food, shelter, safety. In return, you will follow the guidance of the Council and contribute to the Alliance through peaceful labor." Lisa's face grew red with anger. "Relocate us? You want to move our entire species away from Earth?" "Only for your own good," Zethka said, still smiling. "Earth is too exposed, too easy for predators to find. We have much better worlds for creatures like you." Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. He saw anger in their faces, but also something else, something that Zethka clearly did not recognize. Jake had seen that look before, in the eyes of soldiers before a battle. "Thank you for your offer," Jake said carefully, "but we prefer to stay on our own world. Perhaps we could discuss a different kind of relationship. Trade, maybe, or a defense alliance between equals." Zethka's smile faded. His large eyes blinked several times. Equals? I am afraid you do not understand. Prey species are not equals to the advanced civilizations of the galaxy. You need guidance and protection. This is how things have always been done. And if we refuse? Alex asked quietly. Refuse? Zethka looked confused. Prey species do not refuse protection. It would be ... unwise. The alien's image disappeared from the screen. Ben quickly checked his instruments. Captain, I'm reading. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace around us. Big ones. Jake turned to Alex. How many? 15 vessels, Captain. They're surrounding us. The screen flickered back to life, but this time it showed a different alien. This one was larger. Then Zethka, with darker skin and harder eyes. When he spoke, his voice was cold. I am Commander Vexther of the Council Enforcement Fleet. You will prepare for escort to the processing station. Any resistance will be met with compliance measures. Lisa looked at Jake. Compliance measures? Alex checked his weapons display. Captain, they're charging some kind of energy weapons. Looks like stunning devices, not lethal ones. Jake made his decision. In that moment, he proved that Zethka's research had missed something very important about humans. They were not prey animals who ran when threatened. They were pack hunters who fought back. All hands, battle stations. Alex, prepare weapons. Captain, are you sure about this? Alex asked, though he was already moving to his station. They want to stun us into submission and drag us away from our home, Jake said. I don't think that's something we can allow. The first alien energy beam hit the New Horizons shields. The ship shook slightly, but the shields held firm. On his screen, Vexthurst looked surprised. Your defensive systems are more advanced than expected. Increase power, but Jake was already giving orders. Alex, target their weapon systems. Disable them. Don't destroy them. Yes, sir. The human ship's weapons were different from anything the aliens expected. Instead of the simple energy beams most species used, humans had developed complex targeting systems and precise control methods. In 30 seconds, Alex had disabled the weapons on 3 alien ships without seriously harming their crews. Vexthurst's face showed confusion, and then something that might have been fear. How did you do that? Prey species do not have such technology. Jake stood up straight and looked directly at the alien commander. Maybe that's because we're not prey. The New Horizon turned and accelerated away from the alien fleet. The alien. Ships tried to follow, but they had been designed to intimidate, not to chase. Within minutes, the human ship was gone, leaving behind 15 confused aliens and a lot of questions. Back on the Harmony's edge, Zethka stared at his computer screen. In shock. Everything he thought he knew about classification was wrong. For the first time in galactic history, a prey species had fought back successfully. He began typing a new report, but he had no idea how to explain what had just happened. Earth was supposed to produce prey, not predators. But the evidence was clear. The humans were something entirely different. The news traveled fast through the galaxy. On the Council homeworld of Prime, dozens of alien species gathered in the Great Meeting Hall. They all looked similar in some ways. Large eyes, small teeth, thin bodies built for running rather than fighting. They were the successful civilizations of the galaxy, the ones who had learned to hide and survive. Elder Kesna of the Jorth people spoke first. Her voice was high and worried. This makes no sense. The biological data was clear. These humans show every sign of being a prey species. Zethka stood before the council, his 4 arms shaking with nervousness. I reviewed the data many times. They grow plants for food. They live in large groups for protection. They have no natural weapons. Everything pointed to them being another herbivore species like us. Yet they fought back, said Elder Mortu, his blue skin turning darker with concern. And they won. 15 enforcement ships were disabled by one small vessel. Meanwhile, on Earth, General Pete Collins sat in a secure bunker deep underground. The room was filled with Earth's top military and scientific leaders. The mood was serious, but not panicked. Humans had been preparing for this possibility ever since they first looked up at the stars. Dr. Amy Walsh stood at the front of the room with a display showing alien biological data that Captain Morrison had sent back. Amy was one of Earth's best experts on how life evolved. She had spent years studying why humans were different from most animals on their own planet. The aliens made a basic mistake, Amy said, pointing at the display. They assumed that all intelligent life follows the same pattern. Look at their data. Every species in their alliance evolved from plant eaters who developed big brains to help them hide from predators. General Collins leaned forward. And we didn't. Exactly. We evolved from hunters. Not the big scary kind that rely on claws and teeth, but persistence hunters. We used our brains to work together, to plan, to chase prey until it couldn't run anymore. Every part of human society comes from that hunting background. Colonel Nancy Ford, head of Earth's space defense, asked the obvious question. So what does that mean for us? Amy smiled grimly. It means we think about problems completely differently than they do. When they see a threat, they think about hiding or running. When we see a threat, we think about how to eliminate it. Back in space, Captain Morrison's ship was busy. They had not returned to Earth directly. Instead, Jake had ordered his crew to gather intelligence about this galactic council. What they found was disturbing. Dr. Lisa Bennett worked with the ships. Computer to analyze alien communications they had intercepted. Jake, you need to see this. The Protected Species Alliance isn't what they claim it is. Jake looked at the data on Lisa's screen. It showed population numbers for dozens of species. What am I looking at? Slavery, Lisa said bluntly. Oh, they don't call it that. They call it protection and guidance. But look at the pattern. Each species starts with billions of individuals on their homeworld. Within a few generations of joining the Alliance, their population drops to a few million spread across controlled worlds. Commander Alex Torres joined them. It gets worse. I've been analyzing their military structure. The so-called protector species aren't that impressive. They have big fleets, but their tactics are basic. They rely entirely on overwhelming force. And intimidation? Meaning? Jake asked. Meaning they've never had to fight anyone who fought back. Every species they've encountered just gave up when they saw the size of their fleets. On a distant world called Nexka, something unusual was happening. The planet was home to the Yilfen, a species that looked like large rabbits with 6 legs. They had been part of the Protected Species Alliance for 800 years. They lived quiet lives in assigned cities, doing the work their protectors gave them. But today, Val Lynn was doing something dangerous. She was listening to an illegal transmission from the human ship New Horizon. The humans were broadcasting on frequencies the Council thought no prey species would use. The human voice spoke in simple words that the computer could translate. People of the galaxy, you are not as helpless as they want you to believe. You have choices. You can learn to protect yourselves. Val Lynn's large ears twitched with fear and something else she had never felt before. Hope. Back on Earth, preparations were moving quickly. Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker had been put in charge of developing new military strategies. Steve was a young officer who specialized in unconventional warfare. He sat in a room with maps of the galaxy, planning something that had never been tried before. The key is that they don't understand how we think, Steve explained to his team. They expect large fleets meeting in open space for formal battles. They've never dealt with hit-and-run tactics, guerrilla warfare, or coordinated attacks from multiple directions. Dr. Kate Rogers was working on a different problem. She had pieces of alien technology from the disabled ships, and she was trying to understand how it worked. Kate was brilliant with engineering, and she could see possibilities the aliens had never considered. Their technology is actually less advanced than ours in some ways, Kate told General Collins during a briefing. They focused on making big, impressive weapons and shields, but they never developed the kind of precise targeting systems we have. They never needed to, because their enemies always ran away. On the alien homeworld, the Council was making a decision that would change everything. Elder Kesna spoke to the assembly. We cannot allow this precedent. If one prey species successfully resists protection, others might try to follow. We must make an example of these humans. Zefka tried to object. Perhaps we could try negotiating. They seemed willing to discuss alternatives. But Elder Mortu cut him off. There are no alternatives. The natural order must be maintained. Prey species need protection whether they want it or not. We will send the full enforcement fleet. The decision was made. Every available warship in the Galactic Council would be sent to Earth. It would be the largest military force ever assembled. Surely no species, no matter how strangely they behaved, could resist such overwhelming power. What the Council did not understand was that they had just made the worst possible decision when dealing with persistence hunters. Humans had learned long ago that when something threatened their pack, their family, their home, they did not run or hide. They gathered their own pack and they hunted back. On Earth, the preparations intensified. Every human colony ship was recalled. Every military vessel was prepared for battle. But more importantly, Dr. Walsh and her team began reaching out to other species in the galaxy. The message was simple and revolutionary. You do not have to be prey forever dotting deep space. Captain Morrison received new orders. He was no longer just an explorer. He was now Admiral Morrison, and his job was to show the galaxy that Earth did indeed produce predators, not prey. The hunt was about to begin, and for the first time in galactic history, the prey were coming for the predators. Earth was no longer the quiet blue planet it had been just months before. Shipyards that had taken years to build now worked day and night. Captain Rick Nelson stood on the bridge of the new ship Defender, watching as dozens of similar vessels took shape in the orbital construction yards. Rick was a man who understood space combat better than most. He had spent his career studying military history and space tactics. Now he was in charge of the human defense fleet, and he knew they had very little time to prepare. Status report, Rick called to his bridge crew. Lieutenant Commander Sandra. Blake looked up from her station. 37 ships completed and ready for combat. Another 63 still under construction. Dr. Rogers estimates we'll have 120 vessels ready when the alien fleet arrives. Rick nodded. It sounded like a lot, but intelligence reports suggested the alien fleet would have over 3,000 ships. The numbers were not in humanity's favor. On the other side of the galaxy, something terrible was happening. The colony ship Earth's Hope had been traveling to a new star system when the alien enforcement fleet found it. 50,000 human civilians, including families with children, were aboard the ship. The alien commander, a creature called Draktor, had given them a simple choice: surrender and return to Earth for processing, or be destroyed as an example. To other humans, Captain Tony Martinez was in command of the 3 escort ships protecting Earth's Hope. Tony was a veteran of many space missions, but he had never faced anything like this. 40 alien warships surrounded his small fleet, each one larger than any human vessel. Captain, his communications officer called out, "The colony ship is asking for orders." Tony looked at the screen showing the alien fleet. The smart thing would be to surrender, save the civilians, and hope for mercy. But Tony knew what surrender meant. Those 50,000 people would disappear into the alien protection system, never to be seen again. Send a message to all ships, Tony said. We're not surrendering. We're going hunting. What happened next would be talked about for generations. Instead of trying to fight the alien fleet directly, Tony implemented tactics that no alien had ever seen before. His 3 ships split up and began running in different directions. The aliens followed, expecting an easy chase. But Tony wasn't running away. He was leading them into a trap he was creating as he moved. For 6 days, Tony's ships led the alien fleet through a complicated dance across 3 star systems. The aliens had faster ships, but they didn't understand what Tony was doing. Every time they got close to one human ship, it would vanish into an asteroid field or behind a planet. Meanwhile, the other human ships would attack the alien fleet from behind, hitting their engines and weapon systems before disappearing again. By the end of the week, Tony had destroyed 12 alien ships and damaged 20 more. The rest of the alien fleet was scattered across multiple star systems, confused and angry. The colony ship Earth's Hope had escaped safely. Back on Earth, Doctor. Kate Rogers was working in her laboratory when she made a discovery that changed everything. She had been studying the alien weapons that had been used against Tony's fleet, and she found something interesting. General Collins, she called excitedly. You need to see this. The general arrived quickly, along with Dr. Walsh and several other scientists. Kate showed them a small device she had taken from an alien weapon. It's a fear generator, Kate explained. The aliens have been using biological weapons to create terror in other species. But look at this. She showed them a readout on her computer. It doesn't work on humans at all. Our brain chemistry is completely different. Dr. Walsh studied the data. That explains a lot. The aliens have been controlling other species, not just through superior technology, but through biological fear. Weapons. No wonder no one has ever fought back effectively. General Collins smiled grimly. And it doesn't work on us because we evolved differently. Exactly. We're immune to their most powerful weapon. Meanwhile, on the planet Nexka, Vel Lin was doing something that would have been impossible a few months ago. She was teaching other members of her species how to fight back. The human broadcasts had continued, and now they included detailed instructions, how to build simple weapons, how to coordinate attacks, how to overcome the fear that had kept prey species submissive for so long. Remember, Vel Lin told the group of 20 Yilfen who had gathered in secret, we outnumber our guards by thousands to 1. They have controlled us through fear, but fear is just a feeling. It cannot stop us if we choose to act. One of the younger Yilfen, a male named Kekstu, raised his paw. But what if we fail? What if they punish us? Then we will have tried, Vel Lin replied. The humans have shown us that prey species can fight back. We are not helpless unless we choose to be. That night, the first rebellion in 800 years began on Nexka. It was small and poorly organized, but it was the beginning of something much larger. Admiral Morrison, now commanding a fleet of human reconnaissance ships, received the news while patrolling near the edge of alien space. His communications officer, Commander Julie Park, brought him the report. Sir, we're getting transmissions from 17 different star systems. It looks like multiple species are beginning to resist their protectors. Morrison studied the data. Any word from our contact on Nexka? Yes, sir. Vel Lin reports that they've taken control of 3 cities and are teaching resistance tactics to other species on nearby worlds. Morrison felt a mix of pride and concern. The galaxy was changing, but change was dangerous. The Alien Council would not tolerate these rebellions. His concern proved correct. Within days, the Council made a decision that revealed their true nature. Elder Kesna announced that all rebellious prey species would be relocated to punishment worlds. Any species that resisted would be eliminated entirely. The natural order must be preserved, she declared to the Galactic Assembly. We have been too lenient, too kind. It is time to remind the prey species why they need our protection. The largest military fleet in galactic history began moving toward the rebellious worlds, but they made a crucial mistake. They decided to make Earth their first target, believing that destroying the humans would end the rebellion. What they didn't understand was that attacking Earth would not end the rebellion. It would turn it into a war. General Collins stood in the command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching as reports came in from around the galaxy. Rebellions on 43 worlds. Alien enforcement fleets moving to crush the resistance. And heading directly toward Earth, the largest armada ever assembled. General, Colonel Ford said, the alien fleet will arrive in 72 hours. 3,400 ships. Collins nodded. And our fleet? 120 ships. Ready for combat. Another 80 still under construction. The numbers were impossible. But Collins had spent his career studying military history, and he knew that numbers didn't always determine the outcome of a battle. Sometimes, the side that wanted to win more found a way to overcome impossible odds. Send a message to all human ships, Collins ordered. Tell them we're not just defending Earth. We're fighting for every species in the galaxy that has been told they're too weak to defend themselves. In space, Admiral Morrison received the message and smiled. The hunt was about to begin, and for the first time in galactic history, the predators were going to learn what it felt like to be prey. The alien fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system, like a dark cloud covering the stars. 3,400 ships moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with weapon ports and shield generators. At the center of the massive fleet, the command ship Eternal Order carried the alien Supreme Commander, Keth Prime. Keth Prime was different from the other Council species. His people, the Shawketh, were the closest thing the galaxy had to traditional predators. They were larger, stronger, and more aggressive than the herbivore species that made up most of the Council. But even they had never evolved the way humans had. Report. Keth Prime growled to his bridge crew. Human fleet detected near the 4th planet, his tactical officer replied. 137 vessels. They are significantly outnumbered. Keth Prime smiled, showing sharp teeth. Good. This will be over quickly. Then we can deal with the rebellions these humans have started. But Admiral Morrison had no intention of fighting a traditional space battle. Hidden throughout the solar system, human ships waited in positions the aliens would never expect. Behind asteroids, in the shadow of moons, even diving close to the sun, where their heat signatures would be invisible, Commander Tony Martinez, now promoted after his successful defense of the colony ship, controlled a group of 50 ships near Jupiter. His job was not to defeat the alien fleet, but to confuse and divide it. Remember, Tony told his captains over the communication system, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to turn their strength against them. Dr. Kate Rogers watched from Earth's primary orbital station as her new weapon systems came online. She had spent months studying alien technology and finding its weaknesses. The aliens built their ships to intimidate and overpower. Humans built their ships to hunt. All defensive platforms ready, Kate reported to General Collins. The aliens are going to get a surprise when they reach Earth. The battle began when the alien fleet was still 2 days away from Earth. Morrison's ships started hitting the edges of the alien formation with quick strikes before vanishing back into the dark. The aliens tried to pursue, but their large ships were too slow to catch the smaller, faster human vessels. Keth Prime grew frustrated as reports came in. How are they moving so quickly? How do they keep disappearing? Unknown, Supreme Commander, his tactical officer replied. Their ships appear to be using unconventional movement patterns. What the aliens didn't understand was that human ships were designed for three-dimensional thinking. While alien fleets moved in flat formations like armies on a planet's surface, human ships could attack from above, below, and behind simultaneously. Commander Julie Park led a group of ships in an attack that came from directly beneath the alien fleet. While the aliens were looking for threats from the front and sides, Julie's ship struck at their engines and communication systems before diving away toward the inner planets. But the real surprise came when the aliens reached Mars. Dr. Rogers had placed hidden weapon platforms throughout the asteroid belt and around Mars itself. As the alien fleet passed the red planet, it suddenly found itself under attack from directions they hadn't even considered. Weapons fire from the planet's surface. The alien tactical officer reported in shock. How did they place weapons on Mars? Without us detecting them? Keth Prime's confidence began to crack. This is impossible. Prey species do not fight like this. On Earth, General Collins watched the battle reports with satisfaction. The alien fleet was confused and spread out across the solar system. Their formation was broken, their communications were disrupted, and they had no idea where the next attack was coming from. But the real change was happening on worlds throughout the galaxy. Vel Lin on Nexgar had been busy teaching other species the lessons she had learned from human broadcasts. The rebellion was spreading faster than the Council could contain it. On the world of Ter-Ka, the Yul Men species had taken control of their capital city. On Hex Prime, the Kor-Ta had destroyed their guard stations and were building their own weapons. 47 species across 19 star systems were in open revolt. Elder Kesna sat in the council chambers on Ter-Prime, watching reports of rebellions throughout their territory. How did this happen so quickly? She asked Zeth-Ka, who had been studying human behavior since the first contact, had an answer. The humans did not just fight back, Elder. They taught others how to fight. They shared their knowledge freely. But why would they do that? Kesna asked. What do they gain from helping other species? I believe, Zeth-Ka said carefully, that they do not think the way we do. They do not see other species as competition or resources. They see them as potential allies. Back in Earth's solar system, the battle was reaching its climax. Keth Prime had finally managed to regroup part of his fleet and was making a direct assault on Earth itself. But Admiral Morrison was ready. As the alien ships approached Earth, they found themselves flying into the most sophisticated defense system ever created. Dr. Rogers had not just built weapons platforms. She had turned Earth's entire orbital space into a weapon. Satellites that looked like communication arrays suddenly revealed themselves as missile launchers. Space stations that appeared to be research facilities opened up with energy weapons. Even some of the space debris floating around Earth turned out to be disguised mines. But the most shocking moment came when the moon itself seemed to come alive with weapon fire. Rogers had spent months building hidden installations on the lunar surface, using human mining technology to create fortresses the aliens had never detected. Commander Sandra Blake, now captain of her own ship, led the final assault. As the alien fleet struggled to deal with the orbital defenses, Sandra's ships attacked from behind, cutting off their retreat. This is impossible, Keth Prime raged as his fleet crumbled around him. No species has ever fought like this. Number species has ever turned an entire star system into a weapon. His communications officer looked up with fear in his large eyes. Supreme Commander, we're receiving reports from the home worlds. The rebellions are spreading. 17 more species have joined the revolt just in the last day. Keth Prime realized with growing horror that the humans had not just been defending Earth. They had been teaching the entire galaxy a new way to think about warfare. Instead of formal battles between fleets, they had created a galaxy-wide resistance. Movement. On Nextgal, Vel Lin stood before a crowd of thousands. Species from dozens of worlds had gathered to hear her speak. "The humans have shown us the truth," she said. "We are not prey. We have never been prey. We are only prey if we choose to be." The crowd roared its agreement. For the first time in galactic history, prey species were learning to hunt their hunters. Back at Earth, Admiral Morrison received a transmission from Keth Prime. The alien commander's voice was filled with disbelief. "What are you?" Keth Prime asked. "What kind of species are you?" Morrison smiled as he looked out at the wreckage of the once mighty alien fleet. "We're the kind that hunts predators," he replied. "And you've been hunting for a very long time. The galaxy would never be the same." The victory at Earth was just the beginning. Within days of Keth Prime's defeat, rebellions erupted on over 200 worlds. The galaxy was changing faster than anyone had thought possible, and the old council was struggling to understand what was happening. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, reading reports from across the galaxy. Captain Rick Nelson had just returned from a mission to the Veltar homeworld, where he had helped coordinate the largest multi-species military operation in galactic history. "Report, Rick," Morrison said. "It's working, Admiral. The prey species are learning to fight together. We've got Yulfang working with Korta, Veltar coordinating with Hexmen. They're sharing tactics, resources, everything." Morrison nodded. This was exactly what humanity had hoped for. They had not wanted to conquer the galaxy. They had wanted to free it. On the council homeworld of Terprime, the situation was desperate. Elder Kesna sat in an emergency session with the remaining council leaders. Half of their territory was in rebellion, and their enforcement fleets were scattered and demoralized. "We must negotiate," urged Elder Mortu. "The old ways are not working." But Keth Prime, his pride wounded from his defeat at Earth, disagreed. "No, we challenge their leader to single combat. If we defeat the human admiral, their spirit will be broken." Kesna looked at him with tired eyes. "And if you lose?" "I will not lose," Keth Prime snarled. "I am a true predator. These humans are just clever prey." The challenge was sent, and to everyone's surprise, Admiral Morrison accepted. The location would be neutral space, witnessed by representatives from every species in the galaxy. It would be the first time in galactic history that a prey species leader had agreed to face a predator in single combat. Dr. Amy Walsh worked with Morrison to prepare for the fight. "Remember," she told him, "Keth Prime is bigger and stronger than you. But size and strength are not the only advantages in a fight." Morrison smiled. "I know. I've studied his species. They're ambush predators. They rely on overwhelming their prey quickly, but that's not how humans hunt." The day of the combat arrived. Thousands of ships from hundreds of species gathered to watch. On a small asteroid that had been prepared as a fighting ground, Morrison and Keth Prime faced each other. Keth Prime was impressive, 3 meters tall, with powerful arms and sharp claws. His people had ruled through fear and intimidation for centuries. Morrison was smaller, apparently weaker, with no natural weapons. "You should have stayed hidden on your little world," Keth Prime taunted. "Now you will learn why prey species need protection." Morrison said nothing. He simply waited, watching his opponent with the patience of a persistence hunter. The fight began with Keth Prime's charge. He moved fast, trying to end the combat quickly with his claws and strength. But Morrison was not where Keth Prime expected him to be. The human had moved aside, using his opponent's momentum against him. For 20 minutes, the pattern continued. Keth Prime would attack with overwhelming force, and Morrison would evade, letting the alien tire himself out. This was not the kind of combat the galaxy was used to seeing. Traditionally, single combat was decided quickly by whoever was stronger or faster, but Morrison was fighting like a human. He was patient, tactical, always thinking several moves ahead. Every time Keth Prime attacked, Morrison learned something new about his opponent's weaknesses. As the fight continued, something became clear to everyone watching. Keth Prime was getting tired, while Morrison seemed as fresh as when he started. The aliens' attacks became slower, less coordinated. "Impossible," Keth Prime gasped. "You should be exhausted. You should be afraid." "Fear is just a feeling," Morrison replied, echoing words that Vell-Lyn had spoken on Nexka. "It cannot stop someone who chooses to act." The end came suddenly. Keth Prime made one final desperate attack, putting all his remaining strength behind it. Morrison sidestepped and used the alien's own momentum to send him crashing into the asteroid's surface. Keth Prime lay still, defeated but not dead. Morrison could have killed him, but he chose not to. Instead, he offered his hand to help the alien stand up. "This is how it ends?" Keth Prime asked in confusion. "No," Morrison replied. "This is how it begins." The galaxy watched in amazement as Morrison helped his defeated opponent to his feet. In that moment, they saw something they had never seen before. Strength that did not need to destroy. Power that chose to protect rather than dominate. Elder Kesna was the first to speak over the communication system. "We. We do not understand. You won. Why did you not kill him?" Morrison looked directly at the camera that was broadcasting. "To every world in the galaxy." Because the goal was never to replace one predator with another. The goal was to show everyone that there is another way. In the weeks that followed, the old council structure collapsed completely. But instead of chaos, something new emerged. Dr. Walsh worked with representatives from hundreds of species to create the Galactic Federation, a government based on cooperation rather than domination. Vell-Lyn was elected as one of the first Federation representatives. Her species, the Yil-Fen, were no longer called prey. None of the species were. They were simply free people working together. Even some of the former predator species joined the Federation. Zethka, who had learned much from studying humans, became an ambassador between the old council species and the new government. Keth Prime himself underwent a remarkable change. Defeated in combat, but treated with honor, he began to understand what Morrison had been trying to teach the galaxy. Strength did not have to mean domination. A true predator could choose to protect rather than destroy. Captain Tony Martinez established the Federation Defense Force, teaching former prey species how to protect themselves and others. The galaxy's first multi-species military units began, training together, learning that cooperation could be more powerful than any individual strength. Dr. Kate Rogers led scientific exchanges between species, sharing technology and knowledge freely. For the first time in galactic history, species were working together to solve problems rather than hiding from them. Admiral Morrison found himself in a role he had never expected. As the first president of the Galactic Federation, he helped guide the transition from a galaxy ruled by fear to one governed by cooperation. But perhaps the most important change was in how species saw themselves. Vell-Lyn often spoke to groups of young beings from various worlds, telling them the lesson humanity had taught the galaxy. "You are not prey unless you choose to be," she would say. "You are not weak unless you accept weakness. You have choices, and the power to make those choices if you are brave enough to use it." Years later, as new exploration ships set out to find other civilizations beyond the known galaxy, they carried with them the lesson Earth had taught. The universe was vast and sometimes dangerous, but no one had to face it alone. Earth had indeed produced predators, not prey, but the most dangerous thing they hunted was not other species. It was the idea that anyone should have to live in fear, The galaxy was free, and it would stay that way as long as beings remembered that freedom was not given by others. It was claimed by those brave enough to reach for it. Dot Morrison stood on the observation deck of the Federation's new headquarters, watching ships from dozens of species work together in the space around Earth. The small blue planet that had once seemed so isolated was now the center of a galaxy-wide community. The hunt was over. The galaxy had learned to hunt for something better than survival. It had learned to hunt for hope.